Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for October 23rd of 2023. Currently we have two main regions that we're going to be going over in today's forecast. We have a marginal threat for southern Texas, and we have a marginal threat for the northern Midwest into southern Minnesota and central Wisconsin. As for our threats for today, we do have a 2% tornado threat for the marginal threat for southern Texas. That's going to be the primary threat for southern Texas. As for our wind threat, we don't really have all that much of a wind threat for any of these locations. However, as for our hail threat, we do have a 5% hail threat for the marginal threat for the northern Midwest. That's going to be the primary threat for the marginal threat up north. Now let's take a look at our day 2 outlooks. As for our day 2 outlook, you can see that we have a marginal threat for the southwest for southern New Mexico into western Texas, but then we also have a marginal threat for the northern Midwest into Michigan, again, pretty much in the same location from Minnesota into Wisconsin and extended into Michigan. So that's something to watch out for tomorrow. And then as for our day 3 outlook, which would be our day 3 outlook would be on Wednesday or the 25th. We currently have a marginal threat for central Texas. So that's the severe weather for some of your upcoming days, and that's some of the dates you want to be watching out for if you live in any of the affected areas. Now let's take a look at our WPC outlooks. Taking a look at our excessive rainfall outlook, we currently have a slight risk for Texas into parts of Oklahoma. This is going to be because of the rain showers that are currently ongoing across Texas and the longevity of those rain showers in Texas as well. We are expected to see those rain showers continue up northward in kind of like a train-like fashion with just a bunch of rainfall across Texas, which is going to lead to the threat of some flash flooding across Texas. But then let's take a look at our winter weather outlook. As you can see, as for our day 1 outlook, we aren't really expected to see all that much of a threat for the U.S. compared to the next couple of days. However, we are expected to see some snowfall across some parts of the U.S., mainly for Montana, northern Montana into northern Idaho, and parts of Washington as well. And then you can see for our day 2 outlook, we are expected to see quite a bit of snow across the Pacific Northwest for Washington down into Oregon, Idaho, parts of Wyoming, and Montana into parts of North Dakota. And then as for our day 3 outlook, you can see we are expected to have snow here as well. We are expected to see snow from Idaho into Wyoming, Montana, parts of South Dakota, and North Dakota. So that's the snow for the upcoming days. We are expected to see quite a bit of snow this week. But as for today, the majority of the snow is expected to stay more so back up into Canada, with a little bit of snowfall coming as far south as the U.S. Taking a look at our weather model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do. Let's focus on the marginal threat for Texas for now. We are expected to see some impacts from the remnants of Hurricane Norma off the coast of western Texas. That is expected to advance northward into Texas across Mexico, and that is expected to carry quite a bit of directional shear from when it was a hurricane over to be used for some tornadic development in southern Texas. But then if we take a look at the northern Midwest, you can see this trough that is currently situated off the southwestern coast of the U.S., southwestern coast of California, and it is advecting northward across the Rocky Mountains and into the Central Plains, into the region of effect, and it is expected to combine with a fairly zonal jet stream in the northern U.S. To focus our area for severe thunderstorm development for today. It's almost saying some of the directional shear carried over from Hurricane Norma should support the threat of some tornadic development in southern Texas. And then combined with the trough advecting across the Rockies and into the Central Plains and the fairly zonal jet stream in the northern U.S., that should lead to some elongated photographs to support the threat of some small to medium hail in the northern Midwest. Taking a look at our composite reflectivity, I'm going to be taking a look at the timing of our storms and when and where you should be able to see our storms before I really get into the deep nitty-gritty of things. So let's take a look at the marginal threat for southern Texas first. As of right now, the models aren't really indicating any development as far as 5 p.m., which would be 4 p.m. for the Central Plains. Models are indicating a little bit of storm development. This should be the primary threat developing somewhere around 5 to 6 p.m., which would be 4 to 5 p.m. in Central Time. As of right now, it is currently 6:22 EST, which is right around when storms should be developing. So if they haven't developed already, I haven't really seen anything on radar since the last time I checked, which was a little bit of a while back, but there's also no warnings in the area. So storms may be ongoing, but as of right now, it doesn't look like they are ongoing, even though the models indicate that they should be ongoing at this point. If they aren't ongoing, then they should start developing very, very soon. And some of the rainfall in this area should help with that as well. It should lead to a fully eroded cap in this area to really lead to overall not much limitation for our storm development in this region. So storms should be able to develop fairly easily in this area. Despite the strong the lack of strong instability, we are expected to see ample instability to support a tornado threat in our severe thunderstorms. Although it's not going to be fairly strong, our cap isn't in place, so our storms should develop fairly easily with the instability that they're given. But let's take a look at the marginal threat for the northern Midwest. You can see our storms are expected to develop back into Iowa somewhere around 11 p.m., which is going to be fairly late in the day. That is going to translate back into 10 p.m. Central Time, and then travel eastward, northeastward into Minnesota, really entering the area of effect somewhere around 1 a.m. So overall, we are expected to see this be a little bit more of an overnight threat. These storms are expected to enter southern Minnesota sometime around 1 a.m., which would be 12 a.m. Central Time. And then as that continues, they are expected to begin to enter Wisconsin, but stay mainly across southern Minnesota into northern Iowa around 3 a.m., which would be 2 a.m. in Central Time, but then continue into Wisconsin overnight, or anywhere from 4 p.m. into 5 p.m. and into the morning when the sun begins to rise. So overall, this is expected to be a little bit more of an overnight threat. Storms are currently ongoing, as you can see by the lack of any warning icons in the area. So again, this should be an overnight threat. You guys should see some overnight thunderstorms in that area, and that's something you want to be watching out for if you live in the affected area. If you're going to be driving at night, make sure that you are taking the necessary precautions, as the roads could potentially be slippery and could potentially be dangerous, especially if you're driving at night with these heavy thunderstorms. So that should be a word of caution if you live in the affected area and you have any plans outside at night. Something I did forget to mention for Texas is that these storms are expected to continue ongoing overnight as well. After they do develop in the marginal threat region, they are expected to continue northward across Texas overnight and potentially reach Oklahoma around sometime in the early morning around 8 a.m., which would be 7 a.m. Central Time. So that's just another time you just want to be watching out for if you live in the affected area. Now let's take a look at our dew points. Now we're going to be getting into the deep nitty-gritty of things. Let's take a look at our dew points for the southern marginal threat in southern Texas first. As you can see, we are expected to see quite a bit of moisture in the atmosphere across this region. Overall, as I was mentioning, our instability is expected to be a little bit more so on the weaker side. However, our dew points are expected to stay fairly good. We are expected to see quite a bit of moisture, and moisture that is going to be extending above 700 millibars. So we are expected to see quite a fairly deep moisture layer across this region. It's actually expected to be extremely deep if it's extending above 700 millibars, with dew points that are expected to be getting as high as the low 70s across southern Texas. But overall, widespread, we should see dew points that are going to be ranging anywhere from the upper 60s into the mid 60s, and we are expected to see continuous return of moisture to the Central Plains out of the Gulf of Mexico over the next couple of days, which should lead to ample instability to really support our severe thunderstorms over the next couple of days across the Central Plains. But then let's take a look at our dew points for the northern Midwest. We are expected to see dew points are going to be getting ranging anywhere from the low 50s into the mid and upper 50s, with back across Iowa, where we are expected to see the initial area of storm development. We are expected to see dew points are going to be getting up to the 60s, but that may not be all that accurate because that is right underneath the storms. Before storms develop, we are expected to see dew points that are expected to be getting as high as at least the low 60s or the upper 50s. So overall, we aren't really expected to see as much moisture compared to down south, but we are expected to see quite a bit of moisture, which could lead to enough instability to support the threat for hail across this region. Sorry about the quality earlier, I didn't catch it until now, but let's take a look at our temperatures really quickly. Let's take a look at the temperatures for the southern marginal threat first. We are expected to see temperatures that are expected to be getting as high as the low 70s, and mainly staying around the low 70s into the upper 60s widespread. But then if we take a look at the temperatures for the northern Midwest, you can see we are expected to see a little bit lower temperatures that are going to be fairly similar to our dew points. Because of how closely related our dew points and our temperatures may be, that is going to lead to a little bit more instability compared to further down south. We are expected to see dew points are going to be, temperatures that are going to be getting as high as the low 60s into the mid 60s, and getting as low as some of the mid and low 50s in some regions across Wisconsin. So it is going to be a little bit more chillier across that region. That could lead to overall less instability because we don't really have strong heating in the area. But because of how closely related our dew points and our temperatures may be, that could also lead to overall a little bit more instability than what we would typically expect with this type of heat and moisture. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that, though. I think I may have gotten some details wrong. So if I did get something wrong with that explanation, please be sure to correct me in the comments, and hopefully I can improve off of that. Taking a look at our instability, focusing on the marginal threat for southern Texas first, you can see we are expected to see overall fairly weak instability across this region. We are expected to see K values that are going to be staying mostly in the triple digits. That is probably going to be partly because of the ongoing rain showers across this region. However, that should also lead to the lack of capping in the region, and also a very, very deep moist layer should also make up for the lack of instability and provided a little bit more instability, and the amount of directional shear across this region should also aid in the lack of strong instability across this region. So we should still be able to see a tornado threat across this region, and the threat of one or two brief tornadoes across this region. And I will be showing you our energy helicity index readings, and you can see for our surface-based instability, we are expected to see quite a bit of surface cape as well. We are expected to see quite a bit of surface instability, so that is also probably going to be making up for the lack of strong, most unstable instability in the region. But let's switch back over to our most unstable instability really quickly, so we can take a look at our instability for the northern Midwest. You can see we are expected to see quite a bit of instability across the northern Midwest. We are expected to see instability that is going to be getting into the low to possibly the mid 2000s across that region, despite the lack of strong heating that we were seeing compared to down south, the lack of fairly strong moisture. It was definitely ample moisture, and it was decently strong, but it wasn't as strong compared to further down south, because of how relatively similar those dew points and our temperatures were to each other. That is going to be increasing our instability a little bit more, getting it into the 2000s. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong on that, so I can improve off of that. But we are expected to see quite a bit of instability across this region, and enough that is going to be able to support and fuel the threat for small to medium hail across this region with our elongated photographs. Now let's take a look at our energy helicity index readings for the region. We are expected to see fairly spotty energy helicity index readings, but that is going to be indicative of a 2% tornado threat. for this region. With the amount of instability that we have and the amount of directional shear that we have, we are expected to see overall fairly weaker end energy helicity index readings, but it's still going to be indicative of a 2% tornado threat for this region, and we should be able to still see the threat of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across this region with some of the storms that we have. As I was mentioning, the fairly strong surface instability is going to make up for the lack of fairly strong most unstable cape in the triple digits, and should be able to support a 2% tornado threat across this region with the amount of directional shear that we have. Taking a look at our total snowfall accumulation really quickly, I'm not really going to be spending too long on this, but I am going to be taking a look at it nonetheless. You can see the majority of the snow is going to stay more so back up into Canada, back further north. However, we are expected to see some snowfall across the United States, with a little bit of snowfall up into Washington, a little bit of snowfall across northern Montana and northern Idaho, into some parts of central Montana in some spotty regions, as well as some snowfall back into Wyoming as well. With it's going to be a little bit more heavier back into Wyoming, and then some models are indicating that we are expected to see a little bit of snow back into southwestern parts of Colorado and into some parts of North Dakota as well. So that's something you would be watching out for if you live in the affected area. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator, and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you live in any of the areas that I covered for today, please stay weather alert for the time being. And if you found anything that may have been wrong with this forecast, please tell me in the comments so I can improve off of there. And hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.